What is up, everyone? Welcome to another issue of Sibling Rivalry, the comic book club show hosted usually by myself and my sister. But we got a return guest since my sister's computer's still broken, and he had such a blast the last time he was here. It's Zanza.
Hello, I'm the replacement sister.
Yep. He's my favorite sister, really.
I
And
am the deepest voice sister you've got.
It's true. And of course, me. It's Benpai. Yeah, we're recording this early. It's Tuesday, just to break the fourth wall a little bit. The show comes out on Friday. Today's Tuesday, and it is, what time is it? It is 8 o'clock at night. I am getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So
delightful.
No, I'm sorry. I'm getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to leave by 3 o'clock in the morning to start driving from my home here in North Carolina down to Florida so I can spend Thanksgiving at Disney World and with my parents and family.
Holy shit.
But it's an 8-hour drive,
words.
and I have a 6-month-old, so it's better to do it in the middle of the night so that she is sleeping through most of the drive.
Okay, I'm going to watch my language so you only have to beep out the one word.
I'm not going to waste the time to bleep out words, so if cursing happens, I'm just going to mark this episode of the podcast as explicit.
Yeah!
Anyways, so the remainder of the books for the year are essentially my picks. So I'm not even going to say, "Oh, this week it's my pick," but it is my pick. And I chose Eternals because there's a movie that came out a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Called Eternals.
Yes.
Currently, the first MCU movie certified rotten on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really?
Yeah. I think.
Wow.
I think at the time of recording this, and I'll pull it up so that I have an exact answer. But I believe it's like 59% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Now I want to see it.
I'm sorry. It's 47% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, now I have to see it.
Yep.
This is the first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie I've wanted to see in a long time.
And I will say, on recording this, have not seen the movie yet.
Neither have I, but my sister has. When I was in the car with her earlier, I'm just like, hey, can you tell me what happens in this movie? I'm curious.
Now, what I did know about the Eternals ahead of time, and I'm only bringing this up because I have a friend.
Yes.
And she's an archaeologist, legit. She's an archaeologist.
Okay.
And the Eternals movie was announced, and I was like, "Oh, cool! That sounds really neat." And she had said, "Oh, yeah, that does sound neat." And then the trailer came out for it, and one of her least favorite story tropes is that humanity's only here because of aliens.
Right.
And that's kind of the gist of the Eternals.
So, that's the entire plot.
So she saw the trailer and then said that. I'm like, oh, you didn't know what the Eternals were.
I didn't before reading this. But a little background that I have ascertained. Apparently, these were original characters from Jack Kirby all the way back in the day.
Yep.
They do look like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the
100%.
And the creative team we have today is one Neil Gaiman, multi-award-winning author, who's worked in as many mediums as he possibly can.
It's true. And done pretty well in every single one.
Yes, I certainly that is not my biggest complaint about this book is the writing. And you got John Romita Jr., best known probably for doing the artwork for Hit Girl and Kick-Ass.
I mean, he's an incredibly well-known artist, and in my opinion, an incredibly talented artist.
Yes. So we have quite the creative team on this one.
Which was so when I was going through and trying to pick an Eternals book, that was kind of one of the things I was like, man, all of these look They look like Golden Age comics books.
Yes.
And this Neil Gaiman entry in it is no exception. This is a turn of the millennia book, but it still looks Golden Age comics, which
On purpose.
yes, absolutely, definitely keeping true to the style of Jack Kirby.
I feel like this is a good one to pick because
Yeah,
this
well, and
is
I
this
picked
is a
it because
reboot.
of the creative team.
Yes.
But yeah, it is a reboot. And so I was talking to someone at my new job who's also really into comics. And we were talking about how Eternals was what we were doing next. And one of the things that he did bring up is like, one of the nice thing about the Eternals is that they're all pretty much self-contained stories.
Okay.
So for the most part, you could pick up any run of the Eternals and read it front to back, and it be a self-contained story. But yeah, I was not expecting the incredibly heavy, like, whether you want to call it Voltron vibes or Power Rangers vibes.
It is kind of like a Sentai, isn't it?
That
It's totally what
I
it
got.
is.
Uh-huh.
They even have they even have Megazords.
They do.
So I would like you to voice your opinions on the book first.
Okay. I mean, so story-wise, now this is one of my least favorite tropes in comics.
Right.
Let's start a story where the main heroes have lost their powers or lost their memories and have no idea that they're heroes. It's one of my.
Okay.
It's done a lot in comics, and it is usually my least favorite thing that's ever done in comics. That being, go ahead.
Yes.
Ahead. No, I want.
No. Finish your statement.
Okay. That being said, I didn't hate how it was done here, but I think that is because I am unfamiliar with the heroes. So
Right.
it was a good way to kind of learn who the heroes were without their powers, and then kind of how they are once they are given back to them. So
Yeah,
it was kind of like an origin without being an origin story.
Yeah, this is intended to be your introduction to these characters. This is intended to be where your jumping point. And for that, it was written much the same way like one of the Marvel movies would be. Like we'll put them in a starting point, have a plot hook, get you in, and tell you who they all are, and then like ends on like a world state for future stories to build on, right?
Right.
This is intended to be a proper beginning. This is supposed to be what tells you who they are if you haven't read a bunch of old comic books. And it doesn't require too much knowledge of the Marvel universe either.
No, it really does not.
It is designed to be the optimal start-on point.
Yeah.
And I like that about it actually. And I also like.
So that's why I was super interested to have you on for some of these, because this isn't your thing.
Nope.
Like superhero comics in Western comics, to my knowledge, for the most part.
No, not really.
So I was really curious as to how to what you were going to think of essentially any book that we read that's a Western comic.
It was interesting because it was definitely a much better jump on point than I've attempted before. Because have you ever tried reading Blackest Night without knowing anything going in?
I have not, but I have read Blackest Night, and
that is you need all of the context to understand anything in it, and I had none.
And that is true with a lot of like world crossover events. It's hard to just pick up a world crossover and be able to be like, oh yeah, this is a fun read. There are
So
very few that are like that.
I want to start with what I was impressed with.
Go for
Right?
it.
All the good stuff, right?
Mhm,
So first off, the inking.
Uh-huh.
The inking is fantastic through the entire book.
Ah.
I am actually not super big on the comic books art style, like at all. But the inking is gorgeous, and the actually on this page right here, it's gonna go away in 2 seconds. But like the
I
composition of
can
all the
actually
shots
pause
are
it there.
also great. Lots of really striking imagery, you know,
Yeah.
really good use of positive negative space.
This
Like
was one of my favorites.
yeah, composition was great across the board. The my it was really easy to follow everything. The dialogue was supernatural. All the characters felt really human. Um,
But
in spite of everything.
right.
But they felt it felt natural. It felt believable. And there were only a few points in the book where I ever got lost on like the sequence of things.
Mhm.
It flowed great. There's even a fight scene with no dialogue that flowed well and was easy to follow. That is not common
No,
in
it is not.
superhero comics at all.
Mhm.
So I have a lot more good things to say about the whole thing than bad, but I still didn't like it.
Yeah. I feel you.
Where where I can tell that I read a really good book, but I can also tell it really wasn't for me because
It's like
I
me
didn't
with
like it
Umbrella
stylistically.
Academy.
Yeah. I didn't like it stylistically at all.
Mhm.
I think they all look super dorky.
Yep.
Um and I wasn't super invested in any of the characters, right? I didn't get super attached to any of them. It isn't like Guardians of the Galaxy where you go and you laugh at how much of an asshole they are to each other,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
You don't pick up on any real chemistry with the characters aside from like
Cersei and
uh
Makari,
yeah,
maybe.
those two were great together.
Yeah.
Seeing them on screen.
Also, real quick,
Yeah.
Makari, Mike Curry,
Yeah, Mark Curry.
and Icarus, Ike Harris. Gotta love it.
Sassy. It's a sassy writing right there.
Gotta love it.
It's very funny. It took me a little bit to even realize it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
As soon as Ike Harris came up, I'm like, that's Icarus, isn't it?
I didn't know who Icarus was. So for me, that was new. But I also just love the very beginning of the book. How it starts, where this dude just wakes up from a nap. It's like, oh, I hate my life. And the dude
Yep.
walks up, like, hey, what if I told you you were an eternal? You're like, I
Please
don't
go
need
away.
religion right now. Like, just to highlight, they go out of their way to set it up with like the grittiest, most realistic world, and then throw at you how absurd the entire concept is immediately out of context.
Yep.
And I thought that was great. But at the same time, nothing really happens in it.
Yeah, and there's not a real conclusion
And
either.
That's deliberate too.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. It feels like because this feels like very much the same
snapping
sort of.
an 11-year-old's neck, by the way.
I did do that. That did happen. But to be fair, that guy's been 11-year-old for
a million years.
How long? I freaking I knew as soon as they're like, hey, this guy's 11 years old. I'm like, this is gonna get weird.
Yep.
This is gonna get weird. There's some weird sex thing that's gonna happen. Somehow I knew immediately.
Yeah.
And I was right.
Yep.
I think I'm not gonna go into the psychology of that, but there is psychology involved.
Oh yeah.
There. But it like feels like what you'd see in a Marvel movie, right? It like sets up the character arcs with a hook, builds up for the climax and conclusion, then just doesn't give it to you because they just set up like, hey, there's a giant freaking robot in San Francisco now, and the entire world knows about it. The Avengers are probably gonna have to deal with it someday, and then they just leave that. It feels like what they want to do is they want to get you in on the Marvel universe. Want you to get you in on these characters for the long haul. This is a comic intended to get you to continually read about the Eternals over time. rather
I don't
than
even
give you a
think
proper story.
this was never meant to be like a long running book, though.
Yeah, but it permanently affects the world state of the Marvel Universe by having a giant ass robot in San Francisco that everybody knows, like even Galactus knows could kill him.
Yeah, that was a part that I did really appreciate. That not only they showed how other beings in the Marvel universe, like pretty well known beings of the Marvel universe, um, like looked at this. Yeah, so this was always meant to be a 7-issue arc.
So why didn't they give it an ending?
That's just what I'm saying.
This feels like I mean, it ends at the end. It doesn't say the end. It says the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're making more after this. This is what it's telling you. It puts them re-enters these characters into the Marvel universe. It then says other writers go figure it out.
Yeah.
It is not intended to end here,
but it does.
But it does.
Oh my god, it does.
And it's extra frustrating because is completely on purpose because the writing is so deliberate, right?
Uh-huh.
The writing is immaculate, honestly, for the whole thing. But
I guess so. I guess it does continue with another like writer artist duo a year later. Like they start picking it up a year later. It is critically panned. Yeah.
Man.
And so I have a lot of the same opinions as you. Like I love superhero comics. I love, I love this genre.
Right.
And reading through it, I can appreciate like what it was doing and the level of talent and skill that does go into it.
Yeah.
But it does not leave me thinking, oh, I want to read more about the Eternals.
Nope. like I have no interest in picking up another Eternals book.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to be a longtime fan to think they're cool. Because just look at they're just the dorkiest designs you've ever seen.
It is true.
I mean, and like at the end of the book, it actually shows you what the old Jack Kirby designs look like, and they're dorkier, but also more charming because they have Jack Kirby's art to go along with it, and it feels like it makes more sense in context. Right, and here it's just like, oh no, it's just big dorky. I do love though the sense of scale they give it, right?
Yes.
Where those the big god robots are
Celestials,
freaking massive.
Yeah. Like I might pick up the modern, like the first couple of issues of the modern run of Eternals just to see how they modernize it, because I could see. I feel like this just falls too much in the middle.
Right.
Like it's a modern book trying to kind of take on its classic style, but
it's like when they brought back Mega Man with Mega Man 9, they made an 8-bit style game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is intended to feel nostalgic.
Right. But I don't have any nostalgia towards it, so it didn't work on me. I love these covers, by the way.
Oh, the covers are gorgeous. But there's I actually have like a box of really old comics, right, that we've dug through. I have like issue 3 of Jack Kirby's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, nice.
I have like and some old like Fables like adapted. I think I have an old Spider-Man PSA in there, and there is absolutely a strong charm to those old books that makes them really fun.
Right.
But this like couples it with really grounded writing that feels very modern realistic, and also does the thing that I actually just don't like about superhero comics in general, where they feel the need to have a bunch of flowery narration all the time. And this is better than most of them. Where like they want to set a mood, like a slightly dreary mood with how characters talk in the narration, right? With how everything is presented. And I think again part of that is they want to juxtapose the gritty reality with the absurd enormity of like the Celestials and the characters, right? They want to make these characters feel like gods in comparison to real life. So they try to establish a very realistic sense of setting and of where it takes place, but they're just way too dorky for that. I do, however, I like Druig, like the guy.
He is one that I'm a little more invested in. Like, so there are three characters.
Yes,
there's three characters that I'm interested in: Druig, Makari, and Cersei.
That's fair. See, Cersei's just like the most fun to see do anything.
Right.
and Druig, his superpower is exposing people to their own personal traumas to manipulate them.
Yeah, he makes them experience waking nightmares.
If I read a story about fighting that guy, it would be awesome. But that is not what we read.
Nope.
I'm like, oh, I would love to see this guy as a proper villain, right? Like right now. But like we didn't.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe that's like the good that comes out of this book is like maybe if I revisited Eternals on like this show, I might specifically search out that story. Like look up good Druid focused stories or Makari focused stories, which I think Makari
it has to exist
in the movie. I think Makari is played by a deaf woman.
What?
Like they changed Makari to be a woman in the movie, and they have her. They make her deaf.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gemma Chan as Cersei. She's
Lauren
seeing her
Ridloff
photo there.
Makari.
Oh, so Cersei is probably pegged as the protagonist here.
I have no idea.
Like based on the fact that like in the cast she's got top billing, but that's the Wikipedia. Let me check. The
cast of this movie though. Like, oh my god.
Eternals 2021. Gemma Chan, Cersei, she's basically perfect. Richard Madden as Icarus, he's basically perfect.
Yeah.
Angelina Jolie as Athena, she does actually have the same face.
I thought that too. Looking through, like watching this, I'm like, oh, or reading this. I'm like,
they gender bent Ajax too, I think.
Oh yeah. Which one was Ajax?
That was like
he was the one that could talk to Eternals or Celestials. I got
Gilgamesh. Oh, I need to see this movie.
Yeah, so Gilgamesh is the strongest Eternal.
Leah McHugh as Sprite. Is that voice acting? Because you just need to get an 11-year-old. Oh, what is going on in this movie? Yeah, Lauren Ridloff as Makari. What did they do?
So what I've seen of Lauren Ridloff as Makari actually looks like really cool and like really endearing. Oh, I didn't even notice that Sprite was in this. I wonder if they're going. I haven't seen the movie, so I wonder if Sprite's also going to be.
Oh yeah, I just found a picture of the whole cast lined up.
Yep. Also, Harry Styles, Eros. So Eros is Thanos' little brother, big brother.
Oh.
Yeah. Just in case you were wondering.
They tried to pick an aesthetic with this movie that kind of worked. And they don't look as dorky as the comic book, but they do kind of still look like they're wearing a bunch of like they got these at Spirit Halloween. Just a little bit.
Yeah, but in the same sense that that they did in like the Thor movies, the first Thor movie.
At the same time, though, like I kind of do appreciate you. Like, no, we're gonna make a movie with a like Power Rangers like Sentai group, and we're just gonna do it.
Yep,
I'm okay with that. Clearly, I just need to see the movie. Like, we're not gonna be able to draw any conclusions.
Exactly, because we're like the movie's out, so people are listening to this and being like, I mean, people are listening to this and have seen the movie and are just like, well, okay, they gotta shut up, man.
Yeah. But no, so I don't know what to do with like a number score on this book, because by all objective measures, it's fantastic, but it's just doesn't leave you with that much of an impact and doesn't make me want to go read more about them.
Ooh, I really
Even
like
though
the
that's like
art
it's
style of the 2021 Eternals run.
Oh, okay, let me see. Eternals 2021 comics. Let's take a look. Once again, great covers. I don't know why these keep getting great covers.
Well, I mean, because that's what gets people to buy comics.
Well, I mean, yeah, they should have great covers. They should always have great covers. But like, yeah, I mean, it looks solid. Again, I don't know if it's for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And honestly, just like the concept of like, oh yeah, these guys have been guardians who have been laying dormant through the entire history of the world to protect these big celestial bodies that hang out. It's not particularly interesting to me. That's not like a concept that makes you go, oh, I want to read more about it. You know,
Right.
It's like too. It's like too cosmic, too like there's no relatability to that. There's no part of that that makes me want to go, oh, I want to just see how these characters like with their human psyches effectively react to it. I also didn't necessarily appreciate how many biblical references there were. They wanted to do everything they could to establish a very massive scale, a very godlike scale. So they kept using biblical passages in order to compare every like character and everything to it, specifically to God. You know,
Yeah.
It's built entirely on Christian paradigms, which makes sense for the readership at the time, I suppose. But like, it's it feels a little cheap to do it that way. I think. I feel like there are other ways to establish a massive scale. Like a good example, though it's anime as hell, is the game Asura's Wrath, where you have like this like 6-armed dude rapid punching people, but then like a god who's bigger than the planet puts his finger down on him and he catches it with all 6 of his hands when his finger is like bigger than the continent he's on. You know, it's like there are plenty of ways to establish an impressive sense of scale without directly using biblical references.
Yeah.
It feels like everything does that.
And of the comics that we've read on the show that have a lot of like biblical ties,
yeah,
this is one of the ones that I feel like did it the worst.
It ties in with its narrative not very effectively.
They try to force it, I think, in this one. Whereas like in other comics that we've read, it's been like questioning faith and like all of that. So like,
yeah, where talking about, you know, Christianity then makes sense because you're specifically talking about Christianity in your book. You know?
Yeah.
But this one doesn't. It just wants you to feel like everything in it is bigger than you, can possibly comprehend, and it's just a bunch of dudes in colored tights.
Like Sprite on the Tweenie Network.
This panel right here, bottom right, where the dude gets freaking annihilated and he's just a skeleton, most metal thing I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, this is it was a beautiful scene where the deviants have tried every which way to kill Icarus, and they decide, okay, well, we can't just reduce him to atoms. let's reduce him to electrons, and you just see him get absolutely vaporized in this beautiful purple.
Oh, it's an amazing
skeleton.
panel.
It's great.
It's just kind of upsetting that this book doesn't have like more of an impact on us when it's clearly this good.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just not for me, man.
Not for me either. Is this how it felt when you read Astro Boy?
This is how, I mean, not.
Astro Boy was a little bit easier to pick like problems with it.
So yeah, and I think one of the things that made Astro Boy just a little harder for me on the sense of things was that that's not the style of comic that I read.
Right.
This is the style of comic that I read. And it still just kind of feels meh. Like, I want to love it because it's Neil Gaiman and it's JRJ, and like I'm like, oh yeah, this
can see why you would like both of them from reading this book.
Yeah, and I love I do love both of them. I don't know, I don't like this.
Yeah.
But I guess,
which is a shame, really, but also at the same time, this book is intended to sell you other books. Right? This is a book where they want you to become a fan, where they want you to be invested in what happens next. So, in measuring it by that measure, right, you could see where they're coming from and why they made certain decisions. But it still doesn't necessarily work because we have no reason to go read more Eternals.
Mm-hmm. So, who to you of the Eternals, who was the least interesting to you? I'm curious if you have the same.
Ajax didn't even show up for most of it. Freaking the old guy, he's hilarious. I think his design's great.
Yeah,
because of just this old fat man. Yeah, he's
old hairy fat man.
Yeah, but he seemed underutilized.
Yeah,
because that's the thing. They chose to focus on a couple of them, right? Which is smart because this isn't a very long comic. I read it in a day, really. And so much like when I think my best comparison to that would be Big Hero 6, the Disney movie. Is they have 6 members of their superhero team. They focused on Hero because they have an hour and a half. Right. And that's not a bad idea, right? But if they're trying to sell us on a whole group and then not sell us on the whole group,
I love Big Hero 6, by the way.
I have mixed feelings on it.
Have you read the manga for it?
I have not.
It's fun.
I should have figured there was a manga for it.
It's fun.
I've read some of the Kingdom Hearts manga.
Yeah.
That one has a really goofy art style that makes it super fun. It's like sometimes they'll just scribble things out just to make things funnier. And it's a good time. But yeah, no. So how the hell do we give this number ratings?
Yeah, so real quick, I just want to throw out there. I think the least interesting Eternal in my mind was one of the ones that they focused on the whole book, and that was Icarus. Icarus
didn't do shit in the book.
I could have cared less. If he had not been in the book at all, it wouldn't have bothered me.
Like, he got the best panel in the book where him dying is drawn with so much impact, but zero emotional weight. Because who the hell is he?
Yeah,
he hasn't made us laugh. Right? Actually, like, Cersei's the only one that did anything that was funny.
Yeah.
Right? And where she's like, oh, I'll just wave my hand. Oh, my cat's a dragon now. She's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, which I loved the way that transformation was drawn.
That might have been the best page. But
also, I don't understand why she was sitting in a swimsuit on a roof in New York.
Pure fan service.
Whatever.
Pure fan service. Like, you bet you've watched as much anime as me. That's just what you expect.
Yeah, I guess. her cheeks had to be hot, man. Jesus.
Yeah, no, it just felt like it because like oh, this is our sex symbol, but she's not drawn in a way that's particularly attractive. because she's very boxy because they're going for the super Jack Kirby look, and it's just not that attractive. Like there's one variant cover where she's kind of hot, and that's about it.
Ooh, gosh, sorry about the yawn there.
So yeah, no, but no, Makari and Cersei are definitely like they focused on them for good reason, right? They focused on them because they're the best latch-on points for the story they're trying to tell. This is exactly, if I didn't know better, if I didn't know anything about the movie, I'd say this would be the exact perfect script and plot to adapt into a movie, because the typical white dude protagonist is exactly who they normally. That's who they would have gotten Chris Pratt for if they hadn't already gotten Chris Pratt.
It's true.
But so they were the easiest latch-on points. So focusing on them was smart.
Yeah,
but we didn't.
If there was a comic that was just like
it's just those two,
like I would.
That might be kind of fun. Like, it was just those two on like their honeymoon or some shit. It'd be like aliens attack.
Yeah, like some kind of like Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of style.
That would be hilarious,
right?
That'd be great.
Except they're gods instead of secret agents.
Yeah, try to make sure nobody finds out we're gods. That would be amazing,
right? Something you never knew you wanted, right?
No, that's how I know they do stuff like that. I know where WandaVision came from.
Yeah,
it's the same sort of thing, right? It's like I know comics do that sort of idea all the time because they focus. Because you, my friend, are all of these books' target audience. Like white dude with a kid, like that's who they're typically targeted at.
Yeah.
So like,
and I mean, more modern comics are getting better at that kind of stuff now.
They're diversifying a lot more,
and it's actually making them a lot more interesting. I'm really, really. I love looking at where comics started and where comics are now, because
they adapt politically so much over time.
And like, yeah, you can go back, you can read regular books from different time periods and get a good sense, but like TV and movies, they take so long to get brave and like test the boundaries. And I feel, I mean, there are some boundaries that comics have taken a little bit of time to test, but
right.
I feel like when comics decide to test boundaries on things, they just go balls to the wall.
They don't like. I think it's because they're comparatively really cheap, right? Because like, oh, this book flops, we could just cancel it, make another one,
right?
They like, there's a lot less risk, right? With a big Hollywood movie, you're just like, we need to make sure everybody buys this movie, like goes to the theater,
and then we need to make two versions of it so that China will also buy this movie.
Yeah, and just to make sure we don't go under, because we might be Disney, but if any one of these is like enough of a failure, we're done, because they cost so much so much money, right? Yeah. But comics, right? Like the whole like Marvel DC thing is a sinking ship, but Warner Brothers and Disney don't need to care because they can make millions off of the movies they adapt from it.
Yep.
Right? So they like.
I disagree about the whole sinking ship thing, but we could do a whole conversation on that. I'm
just of the opinion that they should just go straight to graphic novels forever and just not worry about monthly issues. But that's just me. Like, same artists, same writers, just as many things, just make them just go straight to graphic novels.
Yeah. I think the thing with that, though, is that collecting things right now is such a big thing.
Yeah.
That it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
I feel like that's more has to do with tradition than anything else. They want to maintain the comics tradition as much as they can because people love it.
Yeah, I mean, the comic book model right now also is really, really good for people who want to collect, because it's like where these people are where Marvel and DC are making all of their money are first edition runs and first edition variant cover runs. So they make all of the money they need to make off of that. And then it's like the second printing, third printing, fourth printing. That's just like essentially costs them nothing to do, but is gravy. Because all they do on those second, third, and fourth printings is just put a thing on there that says second, third, fourth printing.
And it's suddenly not worth as much.
Right.
And Pokemon cards would do the same thing.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
The only problem with that, right, is that in like 2019, I believe I saw an article once. Scholastic outsold both Marvel and DC with young adult graphic novels.
Interesting.
Yeah, the full collected books sell way better as a whole.
So we're getting off of Eternals really hard. I would actually love to have this conversation in a separate thing, because there's a whole thing to be said about.
I could find this article.
Yeah, I think if you could, let's record something separate. All right. Maybe when I'm back from vacation.
Let's get our number rankings done, and then we'll just start another video.
I don't have time for that because I have to sleep.
You're right. Next time.
But yeah, so story, I usually start with story.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the fact that they took a story trope in comics that I absolutely despise, but still made it gripping for me, like I was interested throughout, and then kind of made this an origin story without being the origin of the Eternals. I do appreciate what Neil Gaiman brought to the table here, because I knew nothing about the Eternals. I still feel like I don't know anything about the Eternals, but but I feel like I could probably have a good foundation for this group.
We know who they are.
Yeah, and I know more about what they're doing and why they exist.
Yes.
I think I think it was interesting enough, but the biggest disappointment to me was really the lack of closure.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen Neil Gaiman take this to the end of this story arc.
Yes. I think that if they took either Sprite,
or whatever it's called,
if they took either Sprite or Druig, right, made them the proper villain to give it a proper climax, right, with an actual fight at the end or something, then it would have been pretty standard, but it still would have been engaging enough to make it fun, because both of them were plenty good villains, or if they wanted to utilize them like that, and that's all it needed. Really was to take was that and maybe a bit more humor, because if it wanted to be funny, it could be funny. The dialogue was witty enough, it was snappy enough, it was natural enough, that with a few more jokes, with a few more things to make me attached to the characters, to make me like them, to make me feel their charisma, then I would probably be a lot more interested in reading more of them. Yeah. And with a proper climax to the story. Those are the two main things that needed, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So I think for me, story-wise, I give it a 6.
I'm gonna give it a 7.
You're gonna give it a 7?
Yeah, because it's still, for me, with comics and any storytelling medium, unnatural sounding dialogue will immediately take me out of a story. If something doesn't seem natural, if something doesn't feel like somebody would say it, right, I'm done. I'm out. I quit.
For sure.
It is that instant. One line that sounds weird, I'm out. I'm done. I have almost zero tolerance policy for unnatural sounding dialogue, and this never got there. The dialogue was, as a whole, very fun and very realistic and very believable, and I appreciated that about it. I could tell how good Neil Gaiman was from how realistic the characters felt. And so I think I'm comfortably giving it a 7. Honestly, the quality of the writing should be higher than that, but I didn't personally enjoy it that much, so I'll put it at 7.
So for me, it's like the quality of the writing was great. For something that I can read something that's absolutely phenomenal from beginning to end, and the ending can just kill it.
Right. I'm not as much that way.
And that's why mine goes down one. I do agree that there is it is well done, and I respect what Neil Gaiman did. He's done better.
Yeah, but there is a fight scene that's flowed clearly, was easy to read, and was engaging without any dialogue. And that's immediately, since that's one of my biggest complaints with superhero comics, I'm just going to give it like a point, just being able to do that. But that's like an art and writing thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that obviously the storyboarding comes into effect there, but the art really...
That's both of them. It is 100% both of them. Yeah. So I'm going to, honestly, it should be like a 6.5, but I can't really. Can I do a 6.5?
You can do a 6.5. I'm
going to do 6.5.
I mean, you're being Anna, and she loves giving 0.5s. So yeah, it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's good enough for better, but it didn't necessarily work.
All right, talk me through art.
I think it's the same deal. Where on a technical level, it deserves like a 9 because like everything, the characters are really expressive. Everything flows cleanly. Everybody looks really distinctive. And the inking is wonderful. I cannot get over this inking. Fantastic ink work. But I didn't personally find it appealing. I didn't think it was very fun to read, and I didn't actually like the color palette very much. I felt like it felt very flat and didn't actually contribute a whole lot to the emotional journey of it, with some exceptions.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like
inconsistent in
how it was consistent, but it was it didn't add to it that much.
Yeah,
I think. So I'm gonna actually also put that at a 7.
Okay.
Because even though the skill and like draftsmanship involved is excellent, and it just, I didn't find it personally appealing. So I would say a 7.
All right. So I also gave art a 7. Partially out of my respect for John Romita Jr. I enjoyed the portrayal of the characters. I respect that they tried to keep a classic kind of comic feel to them. It didn't break the mold for me in any way, shape, or form. It was average, and like you were saying, it didn't really add anything special to the story. Like, I don't feel like... I feel like across the board, the story and the art were just equally mediocre.
I think...
Or not mediocre, but...
I think they were both excellent, but didn't work. They didn't land.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell they're great creators, and this one didn't quite land, at least for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't.
I'd be curious to know. Like, leave comments down below. Let me know.
Absolutely.
Like, let us know what if you loved this book. Tell me why, in the immortal words of the Backstreet Boys.
Tell me why.
Yep.
I'm just thinking of the Brooklyn Nine-Nine scene. Oh shoot! No, it wasn't bad at all, but it just
wasn't for me.
Wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you gave it. So I assume
7.
Your overall score is probably a 7 as well.
Solid 7.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. So
It's sounding like the movie might be an acceptable adaptation.
yeah,
based on scores. I mean, 7's not bad, right? 7's not a bad book, right?
no, it's
7 means you might like it a lot.
It's average
if you're listening to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
7 means that somebody somewhere, this might be their favorite book.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And always remember that D's get degrees.
Yeah.
You know.
I wish I liked it more because I could tell how good it could be.
Yes.
And that's almost more disappointing than a bad comic, right? Because a bad comic, you can derive some enjoyment from how bad it is, or it'd be more memorable, right? This one's just like, hey, we have industry giants and legends, and okay, I guess.
Yeah. Also, I do want to just throw out there because I want to mention it. This whole scene with Makari speaking to the dreaming celestial.
That was good.
I really enjoyed that.
That was good.
Scene.
That was a good scene.
Yeah, There's
lots of good scenes.
Exactly. There are lots of self-contained good scenes, but they didn't bring it together to be a really good book, and for me.
And the panel layout's great, the shot composition's great.
Yep,
consistently.
Yeah, there were some panels where they flip them kind of on their side as you're reading them and things like that. There were things that were good. There just wasn't a lot that was great. You know, one of the things this book didn't have that I usually really like in comics, though, and this will be kind of a little bit of a shout out to Anna because this is her favorite thing. There wasn't I don't remember there being any panel breaking.
There were a couple places where, what do you mean by panel breaking?
So, where characters go, or parts of the scenes go out of their self-contained panel into the rest of the page. There was none of that in this.
There wasn't, and I don't think there needed to be either. I don't think there are times where that's absolutely called for and can be really cool and really engaging, but I don't think
there are a few scenes
think it's called for it.
With the just how massive the Dreaming Celestial was. I think that could have been pretty great, and I think for a lot of the flashback scenes,
that would have been a good way to establish scale
scenes. I think that would have been just for an example. And I mean, again, this is just something that I like. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is how it should have been done. But with this first page, chapter 1, the first page where Mark Curry is dreaming of himself as Makari, I almost would have liked him sleeping at the bottom and the dream actually coming out of him, kind of thing.
That would have been neat.
But also,
I think the way they did it's just fine.
I think I agree, but just as an example of
something a bit more creative.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been really good for establishing the scale of the Celestials here, right?
Yeah.
Because they already did a really good job of that. But breaking out of a panel and seeing them from below could have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
To just help establish how big they are, how crazy they are. Yeah, no. Yeah, the weakest aspect of the artwork is the color work. It's not bad, it's just not interesting.
Yeah. But
that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Not bad. It's not really interesting.
It's true. I think this is a good point to wrap up.
I think so too.
I will say, so there won't be a new episode next week, which is Thanksgiving. So everyone enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Go eat a turkey.
Go eat the turkey.
Unless you don't live in America, then go treat yourself in some other meaningful way.
Yep. This is accurate. And yeah, if you don't live in America, You're like, oh, Thanksgiving was last month. What are you guys talking about?
You still have good food wherever you live, unless you're like England or something.
Yeah.
And then go to your old-fashioned American diner.
Dude, I have stories I could tell you about being out there and how much people love like TGI Fridays. Like, that's the last place I want to go when I'm here, guys. Anyways, when we come back, we'll be back I guess it'll be the first Friday in December, which will be the 3rd. We will have read Volume 1 of Lock and Key. No, I'm sorry. We're reading, it's DC. We're reading Justice League, The Nail.
I only know Justice League from the cartoon.
That's a fairly decent foundation, honestly.
It is.
Yeah.
So this is going to be interesting. I don't think I've read a Justice League book.
I don't read a lot of Justice League, but I think I had chosen this one when I was on my Hawkwoman Hawkman kick, because I really loved Hawkman. Oh my god, such an interesting freaking story. But there's not a lot of like Hawkwoman or Hawkgirl stories, or ones where she's like a really main character in the comics. She's obviously much bigger in the animated show, and this was just one that was recommended to me for people who like her character. I don't necessarily think that she's super like prevalent character, but like, you know, she's there. So that was why I chose that one. So yeah, 3rd of December, Justice League, The Nail. That's when we'll be back. Zanza, please tell the good listeners, watchers, viewers, where can they find you?
All right, there are two main places you can find me. One is twitter.com. You can find me at Zanza47. And on Twitch, also Zanza47.
Nice. And of course, you all can always find me pretty much everywhere. It's Benpai, ITSBENPAI. That's going to be Instagram, Twitter, the whole 9 yards. You can also find some of my photography on Instagram, Benpai Photo. And then you can find everything Shalom-Aste Comics related at itsbenpai.com/comic book club. Otherwise, follow Shalom-Aste Comics on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everything there. I will do my very best to continue posting content while I am on vacation so that there's some stuff going up. But I make no promises, considering I am very, very bad at just keeping up with the weekly content for shorts and TikTok that I say I'm going to do when I'm not on vacation.
And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Oh yeah, you should definitely do that.
Do those things.
Click the thumbs up.
Smash that like button.
Go down there and say, hey, Benpai, Zanza, you guys are stupid. This is the
why
best
you're wrong.
Eternals book ever. You know,
Jack
fight
Kirby
me.
created the greatest section of heroes ever in the Eternals, but they're not really superheroes, guys. That's what makes them special.
Yep, that's exactly what the comments sound like all the time. And, you know, maybe you thought the best part of the comic was, you know, the snapping of an 11-year-old's neck. I don't know.
I certainly think so.
Yeah, I mean, tell us why we're terrible people for thinking that.
That little shit had it coming.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to keep your poll list nice and full. And until next time, Shalom-Aste.
Shalom-Aste! Ha! I did it this time.
You did it this time. Good job, buddy.